guys, today I'm going to show you how I do my Ruby Roundhouse makeup, and how I make the full costume later in the tutorial. First, I start by applying an even coat of foundation to my face. I try not to apply it on too heavy because you don't want it to look too cakey. Before I finish applying foundation on my forehead, I use an Elmer's glue stick and glue down the hairs of my eyebrow. I apply a few layers of it and let it dry. Then I go over it with foundation. I also go over it with a layer of powder foundation, and another layer of liquid foundation. Then I lightly dust the powder foundation all over my face. I use lighter powders to brighten under my eyes. And around my mouth, down my chin, and across my jawline. I also brighten up around my eyes, and down my nose, my brow bone, and on my lower cheeks to make them look fuller. And then I blend it all in. Then I use a deep beige e.l.f. eyeshadow to contour my face. I brush it between my eyebrows and down the sides of my nose. I contour my nose in a more triangular shape to look more like Karen Gillan's. I also add some contour from my nostrils to the tip of my nose to make it look pointier. I keep applying it in different areas of my nose until I'm happy with the shape. I also add a shadow under my bottom lip to make my mouth look puffier. I brush some contour into my eye sockets. And I first contour around my forehead to make it look more narrow. I also contour my nose to my ears. And I blend that in. Then I take some bronzer to add the color back into my face. And I lightly dust it around my face in areas that need it where the sun would hit naturally. Then I take a warm brown eyeliner pencil and begin tracing on the shapes of my eyebrows. Her eyebrows have a slight arch, but they go downward at the end, so I try to recreate that. After that, I use a warm brown powder to fill it in. And I go over the edges with foundation to clean them up. Then I take a pinkish brown eyeshadow and go over my eyelid to make them less prominent. I also brush it under my eyes as well. I use a light powder to brighten up under my eyes. And I blend it in. Then I trace my lip line with a lip stain. Karen Gillan doesn't have a super full upper lip and her bottom lip is more square, so I try to recreate that. Then I fill it in with a lip liner. and I dust over it with powder foundation. Next, I move on to eyeliner. I use a black eyeliner pencil and fill in the outer edges of my lash line. I also drag it out pretty far. I go directly out and not upward. I also apply it pretty thickly over the middle of my upper lash line. Before I finish the eyeliner, I put in my lenses. I only use them to slightly make my eyes lighter. I got these contacts from UniqueSo and they're so natural looking. I'll add a link to them in the description. Next, I use some pearly eyeshadow from Surreal Makeup to highlight my face. I go over the center of my nose, above my upper lip, under the bottom sides of my mouth, on the front of my cheeks, and over my eyebrows. Next, I apply my false eyelashes. I put some glue on them and wait a bit for it to get tacky. Then I press them to my eyelid. Next, I finish off the eyeliner with some black liquid liner. Her wing goes out pretty far and slightly downward. I also go over my lower lash line until I hit the middle of my eye. Then I generously apply mascara. When I'm done with my face makeup, I put on my wig. First, I take my hair down, then I put on a wig cap. I also put on my choker that I made out of some braided cord. Then I put on a second wig cap. Once my wig caps are on and my hair is compressed, I put on my wig. I will add a link in the description to where you can get a similar wig. All I did was curl it and trim it and add a little bit of color to the roots. I use a black e.l.f. eyeliner marker and draw the rectangles on my wrist. This part wasn't easy because I did it with my opposite hand than I usually write with. And that's it for the makeup. Now I'm going to show you how I made the costume. First, I started with the shirt and shorts I got from the thrift shop. I was mainly just looking for a similar color and fit, knowing I could alter it. First, I roll up the shorts to where I wanted the length. And I trace where I need to crop the shirt at the waist. I also trace where I need to cut the sleeves shorter. Then I cut all the pieces off, including the neckline, since her neckline is much lower. I fold down all the cut edges and pin them in place, then I sew them. This is what it looked like after all the pieces were cut and sewed. I also wanted to add some extra seams to the front of the shirt, so I traced them out. Then I folded them over and I pinned them. And I sewed over that and took out the pins. And this is what it looked like. I also added some details to the shirt with gray and black polka dot fabric on the rib cage and under the neckline of the shirt. I also wanted to make the shirt look a bit darker and more weathered. So I watered down some blackish brown paint and dipped the shirt in and let it dry. I add these fake pockets to the front of the pants by just sewing flaps of material down. I also wanted to make the pants look darker and more weathered as well. I mixed paints in different shades of green and brown and watered them down slightly and painted over the shorts. I did it for both sides until I'm happy with the color. Next, I sketch out a harness pattern. But you don't have to do this tedious part yourself since I posted the pattern on my website so you could download it and print it. I traced the pattern onto some brown vinyl with chalk. And cut it all out. Then I pin the pieces together and sew them in place. This is what it looks like all pinned together. When I'm done sewing it, I pin the middle gap to hold it in place while I adjust the strap that goes across. And it attaches in the middle with Velcro. Now it's time to show you how to make all these weird accessories. I also have a printable pattern available for them. I use the Yaya Han foam sheets in a variation of thicknesses. First, I make this little pouch. I use a thinner 2mm foam to cut out the shapes, and I glue the front to the back piece. You don't have to do the next step because you could go straight to painting, but for some extra texture and durability, I glued some fabric over the area that would show on the pouch. This is what it looks like with all the fabric glued on. Once the pouch is done, I move on to the controller looking thing that is on her harness. And I use my scissors to curve the edges. I cut out all the pattern pieces and glue them together. I also do this for the controller thingy that's on her hip. When I'm done with that, I move on to the belt buckle. I glue those pieces together as well. And here are all the pieces glued together and ready to paint. First, I coat them in a few layers of Mod Podge and let that dry. Then I paint the pouch light brown with some cheap acrylic craft paints. And I paint all the other pieces dark brown. When the first layers are dry, I use a white paint marker and draw a crisscross pattern on the pouch. Then I go over it with a warm brown paint to dull the white. I also blot on some dark brown over it to make it look dirty. And I make the button black. Next, I draw this tiny line pattern on all the other pieces. It took a while, but it's such a cool look, it really pays off. After I'm done drawing on all the white lines with a paint marker, I go over it with a warm brown fabric marker to again dull the white. I also lightly brush on some dark brown paint again to make it look more dirty. And here are all the pieces finished with coats of Mod Podge. Next, it's time for me to show you how I made the belt texture. First, I make a belt and then I use puffy paint to make a bunch of little scales. Then I went over it with acrylic craft paint and brushed it off slightly so the puffy paint shininess would show through. It was a really cool effect. From the little strap that hangs from the belt, I just sewed some strips of vinyl to a metal circle. And added some fake studs with dots of hot glue painted gold. Next, I start gluing all the pieces to the belt. The buckle is stabilized with some popsicle sticks on the back, so you can loop the belt fabric through it without the foam ripping. I glue down the buckle, then I glue on the pouch. And I also glue on the controller. I add some more metal details with some super glue. She has a red bandana tied around her wrist, but I wanted to make it a little less vivid and more dingy. So I mixed some water and black paint together, then dipped the bandana in it. I also had these sports gloves lying around, so I traced where I wanted to cut off the fingers. And I cut them off. Then to cover the yellow logo, I painted over that with some black craft paint. The boots I just found on Amazon, I will add a link in the description. And that's pretty much it for my Ruby Roundhouse costume. I really hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. And if you were interested, now you can easily make your own Ruby Roundhouse costume. Or maybe you learned some things you can use for a different costume. I will add all the helpful links in the description, so make sure you check that out. I also have some other cosplay and makeup tutorials on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye!